Hello everyone. I wanted to make a video on batting lineups and batting order and the reason why we should have certain batters in the lineup and where they should be in the order based on their stats, their skills, and also, pretty importantly, mentor selection. So my team is 113 overall. It finishes okay in ranked. Doesn't have team sigs on the offensive side, so um, obviously take this with a grain of salt. This is considering skills without the use of barrel it up because most, if not all, of my batters cannot utilize that skill effectively. But I have pretty solid skill sets on every other batter, so I think it paints a pretty good picture as to how to be pretty efficient with your lineup, even if you don't have access to the best skill basically in the game. Um, Best gold skill in the game. Starting off, I have Mookie Betts, and then Adrian Gonzalez, Doer, Petrocelli, Martinez, Devers, Bogarts, Nixon, then Vasquez. So the reason I have them in this order is because I value my first and second hitters the most. I want them to get as many as bats as possible so that they can get a ton of home runs, hopefully, and a ton of RBIs. Both of them have very high average sets with bad ball hitter and batting machine. And then following that, I have Doer, Petrocelli, and Martinez, who are basically the core of my lineup. And funnily enough, they all have the same solid skill set of charisma, slugger instinct. So while you may argue that I should be moving these around based on charisma nerfs and possible slugger instinct or spotlight nerfs, I don't really feel like I can move Betts and Gonzalez out of the top of my lineup, and because of that, I basically have to sacrifice um, having these three guys with charisma all after one after another. But they still pretty much perform almost evenly all throughout. The reason Doer is slightly higher than the other two in the order is because he has batting machine 2, and surprisingly, even at level 2, batting machine does end up making his home run rate and average higher than Petrocelli and Martinez, despite the pretty significant stat difference. And then sixth, I have Devers just because it's a home run hitting set, spotlight, slugger instinct. It's really low average, which is why I'm not a huge fan of it, but it gets the job done most of the time. um, and then I have the three bums in my lineup: the Xander Bogarts, then Nixon, then Vasquez, Charisma, Slugger Instinct, Charisma Spotlight, and Charisma BM. The reason they're not nearly as good is because the stats start to fall off, and I've kind of shown that with the colors here. Basically, I've considered 120 to 135 as a pretty good place to be for normal cards. You basically want to hit at least 120 on your stats to uh, mitigate against boss 7. Yeah, against boss 7, you're looking at 110 stats rather than boss 8, which would be 108. So anything above 120, you're in a solid spot with normal cards. And hopefully with signature cards, you get up to that 135 to 140 plus range, which is what the red fields are. That's 135 plus. Charisma, Slugger Instinct, Charisma Spotlight, and Charisma BM. They're all pretty much the exact same. They sacrifice it, like Vasquez sacrifices home run rate a little for higher average. Nixon sacrifices a lot of average for more clutch home runs in later innings. And Xander Bogarts is kind of the middle ground of both of them. He hits okay home runs and hits for okay average. You would think that Ace Specialist does something, but it doesn't really. It's just okay. So going into some of the mentor selections here, first of all, I have High Focus and Shake because, again, I prioritize my first and second batters the most. And High Focus increases hit rate for the first and second batters in the lineup when there are no runners on base. And guess what? First inning, you basically are guaranteed to have no runners. And then for my 8th level of mentor, I have predict pitch, which is a higher extra base hits on the third time against the same pitcher, and that's always going to be a starting pitcher. Um, so this is basically the tie situation, right? Where you're both 6 innings in, and then you're going into the seventh. Both starting pitchers are out. You always bat first, right? When in away games, so you have the luxury of having this activate first before your opponent can have this activate. That goes along with long hit as well in the ninth mentor selection, where you get higher extra base hits with no runners and 2 outs. Um, I don't know if I mentioned this, but in these Gold 1 games, you're gonna be playing very low scoring games. You're looking at 1 to 2 runs per game on average. Maybe sometimes your starting pitcher or their starting pitcher will just implode, but normally you're looking at 1 to 2 runs to kind of run away with the game. And because of that, you need to really be mindful of getting any extra edge you can. The 12th mentor selection, which is Solution Instinct, your third, fourth, and fifth batters get higher extra base hits when tied or losing in the 6+. Again, here you're looking for the heart of your lineup, which is all of my 3 Charisma Slugger Instinct batters with the highest stats. Those guys are going to be the ones that benefit from this, and that's probably where the majority of their home runs are actually coming in. Not necessarily the early innings for these guys. It's the late innings against the relief pitchers. This mentor selection could possibly be why setup men really don't do well in general, because if the other team has this going into the 7th or 8th inning, along with their best batters in the 3, 4, 5 holes, you're kind of screwed. And most setup men, I know a lot of people can relate to their setup men just giving up a home run on the first at bat, because they're usually against the heart of the lineup. And then back to back, because it's the most obvious one, you just get home runs after you hit a home run. That's just a no-brainer. And then 16 and 17, I actually went with the offensive side to have a higher hit chance against fastballs and breaking pitches. At the time, it was because I didn't have the pitching cards to get to those like 105 fastball and 105 breaking ball. But looking at it now, I think I went with the right choice, because pitching is already strong enough. So you want to get your batters to a spot that you can actually feel comfortable just having at least 1 or 2 runs against the top teams. And even without any SIGs, my offense does tend to keep up. I think I wrote Charisma nerf, but I actually meant to write setup man nerf, because that's level 18. I actually have setup man nerfed so that I get as much bang for my buck against those relief pitchers. And setup man is also more versatile than winning streak, because you can have setup man and closers using that skill. There's probably a world where I switch it for winning streak in the future, but for now, I really enjoy having the extra leniency to score runs against a lot of setup men. The 7th and 8th innings usually are where I can take a lead, not the 9th. Usually the closer is pretty juiced out. I just wanted to make a bit of a introduction into batting lineup theory. I think that this is not necessarily the best, because I'm just going off of what what my mentor selections were initially, and then I've made some tweaks since then. But overall, I've kept most of my mentor selections very similar, and because of that, I've dictated my lineup to match my mentor selections. What is it, mid-focus to get the higher extra base hit chance for the 3, 4, and 5 hitters? I think that maybe putting your eggs all into one basket and you're only hoping for your 3, 4, and 5 hitters to hit. I've had a lot of success having my quote unquote best hitters in the first and second slot with high focus and shake, and then having the having that extra boost from the 3, 4, and 5 hitters in the later innings to kind of carry me through. And if you're wondering why I don't have much spotlight, it's because I don't know if Spotlight's actually that great of a skill for normal cards. I've tested Charisma Spotlight on two cards, my Trot Nixon and my Jeff Bagwell, and both have Charisma Slugger or Charisma Spotlight, and they've consistently underperformed compared to Charisma Slugger Instinct, even with Bagwell having slightly higher stats than Xander. Somewhat related note, I believe that the tier list of skills that you should be looking for on batters would be Pioneer first, because Pioneer seems to just have it all. It's high average, high home runs, and it's great for those situations where you're not getting a lot of hits. And then Bad Ball Hitter, I think, is the second best skill in the game for batters. And then in terms of gold skills, Barrel It Up is the best skill, in my opinion, especially at level 8. It's just unmatched. However, for most players that aren't buying SIGs, you're not going to be able to get Barrel It Up bonus on your cards. So rather than compromise your trains and try and go for that Barrel It Up bonus, which is theorized to be somewhere around the 120 to 130 contact mark with 100 to 105 to 110 speed, somewhere in that range. It's kind of nebulous. So I think that Charisma is the best gold skill for normal batters, normal and prime batters. And then you have Slugger Instinct is more solid than any other skill, I think, next to Charisma. And then you have Spotlight as that third skill that's kind of in between my S tier and A tier. I think I might be a little biased, but I'm kind of moving it down to that A tier along with Batting Machine. I think people are sleeping on Batting Machine a little bit. Batting Machine 8 is a very significant improvement from Batting Machine 7. And don't sleep on Silver Skills too. While Mookie Betts and Adrian Gonzalez have very similar stats, with Mookie just having higher power than I, and one extra level of bad ball hitter, that heavy hitter 6 has completely changed my Betts' performance. He hit, I think, about what was it, 30 more home runs than Adrian last week with a similar number of at-bats. So I was completely floored with that performance. I've only had heavy hitter for 1 week, so I can't say too much about it, but the improvement was so significant that I had to mention it. And Ace Specialist does nothing. I don't care what people say. I'm sticking by that. But yeah, I think overall, you should pay more attention to your mentor selections, because they can really dictate how to min-max your lineup. Because even though my batters may not look very impressive, they're just okay, I normally am pretty high up in the OPS charts during Club Challenge, and my free-to-play team can still hang out with the top 1,000 teams. But overall, your best bet is to really focus back on get mentor to that level 19 mark, because those nerfs are really important, and really go back and think about why you selected some of your mentor. You're not necessarily I don't think it's talked enough about, because we've just put it to the wayside, thinking that mentor hasn't really affected the game other than the charisma, boss, setup man, winning streak nerfs. Mentor has more of an effect than we might initially see, and those tertiary skills like Batting Machine 2 really do affect your player's performance. And yeah, gold skills are good. Well, the good gold skills are good.